Good morning, race fans. Welcome to another edition of Oh Canada Moose Maple Syrup Hockey. This weekend we had the Formula 1 2025 Canadian Grand Prix, And once again, apologies because this video is extremely late. I wish I had a good excuse like, oh, well, I was at the track and this is the earliest I could film. Oh wait, yes, my dear race fans, yours truly attended the race at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. Honestly, it was the best time of my life, I think. For the most part, I have nothing but good things to say about it. For the most part. There are some complaints, but we'll get to those later. For now though, I will say, definitely recommend going to this race if you can and it's accessible to you, because the action here is pretty much always guaranteed. And this weekend was no less. So let's review everything that went down here at the Race Day Cafe. Sadly, I do not have a mug with me today, but I do have a bottle of Canadian Dasani from the track. So, cheers. Don't you just love the taste of Dasani? As always, let's start with a quick recap of some of the news that happened before the weekend. Supposedly, Fred Vasseur is under some kind of review at Ferrari. I don't know. I've been seeing a lot of reports about it. I'm sure you have too. But personally, I think it's all a load of horseshit. Vasseur has been the team principal at Ferrari for less than 2 years, so we haven't really seen his real impact yet. And clearly, as we all know, Ferrari has a little bit of a problem with throwing away things that work too soon. So yeah. Not a good call, in my opinion. Truly, I think Ferrari needs to hire me, because I could solve all of their problems with one simple solution. Basically, they just need to take whatever idea they've had and just do the complete opposite. It's that bad at this point. Another big piece of news is that Lance Stroll would indeed be competing in front of his home crowd. After a ton of speculation about who was going to replace him, whether it was Felipe Drugovich or Stoffel Van Dorn or Valtteri Bottas. But nope, Lance miraculously recovered from his medical intervention in like 2 weeks. Which, I mean, I get it. If I was him, I would do anything to avoid the humiliation of having anybody else step into my car and do better than me. Although it's not like Stroll did amazing this weekend, did he? The final thing we need to cover is the Haas special livery. The American team was celebrating their 200th race this weekend, so they made a special livery for the occasion. And once again, folks, I fear Haas cooked with this one. So to be fair, the actual design is very simple. It's the exact same layout as the 2025 livery, but they just sort of changed the color scheme. But it looks very nice, and I think it's a really cool tribute. And also, this detail, on the front wing, they added the names of every single current Haas employee, which to me, that's a 10 out of 10 right there, just for that. Here's a comparison with the 2016 livery that they're referencing, and look at how many more sponsors they have. And just seeing how much smaller the old car is, I don't know, it makes me a little sad. It's like so much time has gone by. Anyways, I'll give it a 9 out of 10 just because it is the same layout as the normal 2025 livery. But honestly, I kind of think it looks better than the real one. I mean, they should just keep this one all year. As always, Haas, nice job. God bless America. Practice had a lot of action and some crashes, which promised that the race was going to be interesting. But to leave you with the highlights, Franco did a couple of Collis Pintos there. I really was expecting to see the Mario Kart cloud showing up. Charles Leclerc crashed in FP1 and therefore had to miss FP2. And at one point when Alex Albon went to pit, he missed his garage entirely, and it was the funniest thing. Look at the mechanics' faces, man. They're so confused. Qualifying was also pretty exciting, starting with Alex Albon's car fucking exploding in Q1, and Sainz and Stroll going out in Q1. Stroll being particular because Alonso ended P5 in that session. Yet another Lance L. And then in Q3, we saw Lando Norris making some dumb mistakes and only making P7, and another fiery shootout between 3 of the top drivers. Oscar Piastri sets provisional pole, then Max Verstappen quickly snatches that away, and then wait, what's that? It's George Russell with a purple sector. George sets pole position for the first time this season, which sounds unbelievable, honestly. How has he not had pole before? Like Jesus Christ, the Mercedes came back to life after a grueling 3 races in Europe. You can see that this shirt served me well. Let's get into the race. Lights out and away we go. George Russell gets away cleanly, and Oscar Piastri loses a position to Kimi Antonelli. I highly doubt anybody had rookie driver overtakes championship leader at the start on their bingo cards? If you did, I think you won F1. You won it. You did it. Congrats. In fact, Max Verstappen in second place was starting to get close to George Russell, but then Antonelli started to get close to him. And so soon enough, Antonelli was ready to overtake Verstappen at turn 12, right on the main straight chicane, which coincidentally I could see from my grandstand. And Max went right into the pits, because that's where the pit lane entry is. So I didn't get to see an overtake. Unfortunately for me, this would become a recurring theme the whole race. On lap 21, we got an Alex Albon certified emo moment.
Why you don't listen to me?
I mean, can you blame him? He was being overtaken by everybody because he was still on old-ass medium tires. Finally, they let him pit on lap 23. At this point, George Russell pits and successfully fends off any attempt at an undercut from Max Verstappen by coming out ahead of him. And he takes back the lead of the race by overtaking Charles Leclerc. So Max also gets close to Leclerc, but before he can overtake him, Leclerc goes into the pits right at turn 12. God damn it. Also, mind you, Leclerc had just gone on the radio to say that he did not want to pit because he wanted to try a one-stop. Ferrari just went, "Oh, you want plan C? Oh, cool, we'll just give you plan B and not tell you." I just love this team, man. Clearly things are going smooth sailing over there. Around the half point of the race, we start to see a DRS strain start to form at the back of the grid because the one-stop strategy drivers who are on hard tires are blocking some of the two-stop medium tire drivers. So overall, I think it's fair to say that the one-stop drivers had a bit of an advantage this weekend. On lap 38, Max Verstappen pit because Antonelli was closing in on him. So in the next lap, Antonelli pit and he almost came out before Verstappen. The sound in the grandstands went a little something like this. A bit later, Lance Stroll pushed Pierre Gasly into the grass and got bonked in the head with a 10-second penalty. Yet another L for Lance Stroll in his home race. And Alex Albon's car finally went full emo and gave up, so the team had to retire his car. At this point, Franco Colapinto started closing in on Gabriel Bortoleto, but just before he could overtake on turn 12, you guessed it, Gabriel went into the pits. After the second round of pit stops, Oscar Piastri was getting really close to Antonelli again. Quick detour to the back of the grid where Liam Lawson just retired his car, also over a power unit issue, and back to the top. While Kimi starts to get away from Oscar, Oscar is now hearing the Jaws theme because his teammate Lando Norris is rapidly approaching. At this point, Lando's getting told over the radio that if there's a safety car, he can pit for softs. Oh, the dramatic irony of it all. Lando Norris overtakes Piastri at the hairpin, and from there the two have the most beautiful wheel-to-wheel battle. The pinnacle of let 'em race, the pinnacle of papaya rules, just everything. So then they get to the straight, and Lando Norris needs to overtake, so he does the most logical thing. Ignore the huge gap on the inside and instead go to the outside where there's no space and crash into Piastri and break his front wing and cause a safety car. Wait, what? Lando, my love, when they told you what to do if there's a safety car, I don't think they meant that you should cause the safety car. Anyway, Lando obviously DNF'd, safety car came out, Piastri pit for softs, but the race ended under safety car conditions, so the positions were basically set. Which means George Russell wins the race, followed by Max Verstappen and Kimi Antonelli, who not only gets his first career podium in his rookie year, but also becomes the third ever youngest driver to be on the podium. They grow up so fast. Now, before I talk about my superlatives for the weekend, I do want to talk briefly about my experience at the track, because it was my first time ever going to a Grand Prix, not just the Canadian Grand Prix. So I think this could be helpful to anybody planning to go to a race or maybe go to Canada next year. I know they had a lot of problems in Montreal last year, so maybe some of y'all want to hear about how it was this year. And also because I had a good time and I want to talk about it on my channel, okay? Sue me. So I went to the race with my brother and we stayed at an Airbnb in the city, not in the downtown, it was more in the outskirts, but it still had really good subway access. And we were really surprised by how easy it was to access the track by the subway. They had everything absolutely planned out and prepared, which is really, really impressive. Trust that if there was a New York City Grand Prix, it would be absolute chaos. So, you know, props to the city of Montreal for being so organized. The subway leaves you at the island right before the one where the track is on. So we had to walk all the way from that island to the actual track. But honestly, it really did not take that long. However, it was incredibly sunny and hot. So when I got to the track, I had to unfortunately invest in an expensive ass cap because otherwise the sun was going to burn my face clean off. So at least I got this Oscar Piastri one, which does not look great on me, I know, but at least it did the job. And I'm still repping the future world champion, am I right? So yes, important advice for any of y'all going to a race and the forecast is sunny with no clouds. Bring sunscreen. Bring sunscreen, I'm begging you. The kinds of burns that I saw on people were unfathomable. Wear sunscreen, especially if you're going for multiple days. Definitely bring it. I also want to talk about general admission at Gilles Villeneuve because we originally had general admission tickets. But we quickly realized, unless you're planning to practically camp out before the track opens, GA is a complete scam here. There are only like 3 tiny GA areas, and they're not even in particularly good parts of the track either. And because they were so small and basically completely flat, they filled out so fast, and unless you were in the first couple rows, say goodbye to your Grand Prix. So my brother and I had to cave in and buy last-minute grandstand tickets because God forbid we spent so much time and money getting to Canada only to not see anything. So yeah, do not recommend GA for Canada at all, especially if you're traveling to Montreal. If you live in Montreal and this is just like an evening for you and then you can just go home if it doesn't work out, sure, do whatever. But if you're traveling, and especially if you're traveling from outside of Canada, especially if you're not a US citizen and you have to go through crazy immigration processes to get into and out of the US, do not waste your time and money just to not see anything. Get those grandstand tickets. Do it. We ended up on the grandstand that was right in front of the Paddock Club. To our left, we had turns 12 and 13, the chicane on the main straight, so basically the Wall of Champions. And on the right, we had the rest of the straight. We couldn't really see the start of the grid or most of the pit lane, but we could see the Sauber pit stop, so who's the real winner here? We saw a few overtakes on the chicane, which was good, but we did miss all the action with Norris in the safety car because we left the grandstands pretty early to get in line to go to the podium. And the way they handled all of that was not great either. Apparently last year they got into some trouble because they opened the gates too soon, and so people were out on the track when it wasn't completely safe to do so. So this year I think they went the opposite extreme and were like way too cautious about the whole thing, which meant that they opened the gates really late, so most of us didn't make it to the track. We watched it from behind the fence, which was still cool, but you know, not the same. But then we were able to get on the track and we saw the marks that Lando's car left on the track, and I took a picture with my cap because Oscar Piastri supremacy, what can I say? And then we had this absolute highlight of a moment when George Russell came out of the garage and went out and waved at all of us on the straight. It was so amazing. We were so close to him, like he was right there. I also want to shout out the group of Argentinians who were absolutely anchored to the Alpine garage and chanted practically until they closed the track. I don't know if they ever got to see Colapinto, but I hope they did. From there, we got back to our hotel, which also surprisingly went by pretty fast. The subway, of course, was completely full of people, but it moved by pretty quickly. Like, it didn't take us too long. We did wait for a long time inside the track, though. Like, we brought out camping chairs and we just sort of propped them there and waited until most of the people had already left. So then by the time we did get in the subway, it was pretty smooth. And lastly, I'll leave you with an interesting observation. So going into the weekend, I was expecting to see so many Stroll fans, like practically the only Stroll fans that exist in the world. So going out on the street or at the track, it was all a game of, is that Aston Martin t-shirt for Alonso or for Stroll? And surprisingly, most of them were for Alonso. Obviously, a lot of them didn't have a number, so there was no way to know, but the ones that did, majority 14. So I want to thank all the Canadians for having the critical thinking skills to say, you know what? Lance Stroll may be Canadian, but he's a piece of shit, so we don't claim him. Love y'all for that. Very nice. Okay, now let's talk about my superlatives for the Canadian Grand Prix. My ace of the race this week. Why, of course, it's the one and only Andrea Kimi Antonelli, already making history in his first year in Formula One. I don't think I need to tell you that the crowd cheered way harder for him than for anyone else.
Behind Max, and I killed a bit the front left. And I struggled.
However, I was a little bit disappointed that now that he can drink legally, he didn't take a good swig off the champagne bottle. But it's okay, I'm sure he'll have a lot of moments to do it in the future. I'm not worried. Forza Kimi. Honorable mention goes to George Russell, the literal race winner. How could I not mention him? Practically everything he did today was flawless. As it usually is. There's just nothing bad to say about him, he did everything correctly. It is ridiculous to me that Mercedes has not extended his contract yet. Like, Toto, I understand you're waiting for Max Verstappen, but you're really overlooking a gem of a driver here. Also, having Russell and Mercedes keeps the Merc-Red Bull feud alive, and I love to see it. My disgrace of the race is... I hate to say it, but it's Lando Norris. It was just such a fuck up, y'all. I can't not put him here. You know, the great Ayrton Senna once said, if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver. Well, this weekend, Lando basically said, if you go for a gap that no longer exists, you're no longer a racing driver. I understand that he was expecting that Oscar would defend the inside, so he went to the outside, but he just kept pushing into a space where there clearly was no room for no reason. So yeah, disgrace of the race. I'm sorry for everybody who was wearing Lando merch at the track, and it was a lot of you. This weekend we have 2 strategy disaster classes. The first one is Williams. After a truly amazing start to the season, Williams has been kind of flopping again lately. And this weekend it was worse because they seemed to be getting back on track and they were clearly looking like the best of the rest, but then they just did not deliver on the race. I guess they did okay with Carlos, even though 1 point is not exactly a lot. But what happened with Albon was awful, not just for the PU issue and the DNF, but also because they gave Alex the worst strategy, making him extend his first stint for an eternity while everybody else passed him. So even if he did finish the race, he would have likely been way off the points. Terrible. Do better, Williams, please. Don't embarrass me. And then of course we have a Ferrari disaster class. What else is new? First we got the absolute fiasco with Leclerc, where early on he wanted to go for a 1-stop, but the team put him on a 2-stop without even telling him. They literally asked what he wanted to do and then proceeded to completely ignore him. And then later there was another disagreement over tires because Leclerc wanted to go on mediums, but the team thought it was too early. But like, the track evolution in Canada is huge. There was not going to be as much tire drag, and Leclerc could have totally made it to the end with those mediums. I just truly think that if they hadn't had those strategy fumbles, Leclerc could have totally done much more than a P5. Also, apparently the reason why Hamilton was, quote, nowhere on this race was because he hit a groundhog at some point during the race, which apparently caused significant damage to the car. So, yeah, RIP that groundhog, man. I know that's not really Ferrari's fault, but I'll find a way to blame it on them, just you wait. My underdog shoutout this week goes to Fernando Alonso and Nico Hülkenberg. These two are on an absolute streak lately. It's very refreshing to watch an Aston and a Sauber doing well. And I'm not surprised, it's thanks to these 2 seasoned professionals. Literally 2 of the oldest drivers on the grid, and they're racing better than some of the 20-year-olds on here. All the power to them, honestly. And speaking of grizzled veteran energy, here's my favorite radio of the weekend. An engineer asked Alonso to be gentle on turns 3 and 8, and Fernando responded, "We are racing, not testing." The commentator said it was Alonso's version of Kimi Räikkönen's "Leave me alone, I know what I'm doing," which I think is pretty accurate. For the best moment of the weekend, I mean, being there, perhaps, but also finally seeing a McLaren duel. It's the first time that we've seen a real battle between the 2 championship leaders, and it was way too short. So thank you, McLaren, for letting them race. Please do this always, and not just when it's convenient for one of your drivers. Please. The worst moment of the weekend in terms of the fan experience was definitely the access to the podium and also the whole GA fiasco. In terms of the actual race, I think maybe it was seeing Stroll there instead of another driver potentially. I don't know, I guess I always enjoy seeing a new driver try an F1 car, but that's it. Not a lot of negatives on this one. Overall, I'm rating this race a 4 out of 5 stars, which I'll say is more than I would rate the poutine that I tried. Seriously, we could not really find good poutine anywhere. Maybe I just had really high expectations, but I don't know. Also, to be fair, one of the times we tried it was at the track, and that was probably not great quality, so fair enough. Lastly, let's review the year-long prediction bingo. And of course, we got Antonelli podium. I'm basically a genius. So many of these are coming true. I never expected this. And to this, we have to add the 2 Barcelona predictions, which all of you agreed should be in the bingo. So that is the new Total Wolf meme template and the huge drama involving Max. I will say though, I feel like we are achieving a lot of the possible ones, but all of the other ones really don't seem like they're anywhere near. So we'll have to see. This might be sort of it for the bingo. Oh well, we tried. So that's it for my Canadian Grand Prix review. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. And let me know in the comments what you thought of the race. And if you were also at the track like me, what did you think of the whole experience? Do you have any other recommendations for other people who might want to go? That's all for this weekend. Stay fueled, and I'll see you on the next race day.